Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Sapna Pieroux. She is a brand consultant, author, expert speaker, has been building brands for nearly 3 decades. We'll be learning the secrets to brand, building a standout personal or business brand, avoiding common pitfalls, and boosting your confidence and impact. Welcome to the show, Sapna.
Thank you very much for having me, Ajay. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Sapna. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how one can transform their brand from invisible to unstoppable. We'll learn all about this. But before that, let's learn a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Well, how far back do you want to go? I have been building brands for 30 years. Before that, I studied graphic design, and then I studied marketing, and I fell into a marketing role. So I started off in marketing, in media, working for radio stations and then large media brands across the UK, like EMAP, The Telegraph, Mirror Group newspapers, kind of very well known, Chrysalis Radio. And I had clients such as like L'Oreal, Sony Ericsson, Mercedes. Those were my clients. So I was working with very big brands, helping them amplify their audience and create connections with their target market. So I did that for 20 years, and then kids came along, which changed everything. So I took some time out, and when I came back, I started my own business because I wanted something that I could run around the children and childcare. And so I started I still call it my accidental business, because my husband had started his business, and I created the branding for his company and for his brochure. His brochure got held up at an entrepreneurial event by the speaker as the gold standard. And but the short story is that Andy came home with 7 business cards of entrepreneurs who wanted to work with me and wanted me to work on their brands. So I was, okay, here's my accidental business that started, it was 2016. I sort of say, I had one child on one hip and another playing at my feet, and I got given these 7 business cards. So I realized that with my big brand experience, with my design experience, with helping with copywriting, with communications, with media, I could help smaller brands, these entrepreneurial brands, to look like bigger brands, to look, play bigger, and to accelerate their growth. So that's kind of how it started.
Absolutely. Sapna. So if we look at a bit in the past, earlier people used to want to get associated with big brands, big companies, and through that they would try to build their personal brand, that okay, one knows that I'm working in this company, so obviously I must be talented, I must be knowing. And bit by bit you start using that brand name of the bigger company to build your personal brand, so that and one understands you, either you are very good at what you are doing, or you are influential in the industry in that sense, or you are one of the top ones. But now, how do you see this with lots of startups, lots of people talking about brands, and the change is that big brands are going to individuals known as influencers. They are those personal brands. So how do you see this landscape having changed silently or with a bang, whatever way we want to put it? But where is it that we stand in terms of branding? Who needs whom better?
Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? And when we started talking, of course, I mentioned those big brands that I work for. I mentioned L'Oreal and, those big brands, because they do add credibility. If you have worked with big brands, then it adds a certain amount of kudos and credibility. But you're right that shift is changing now. I talk about it in my book, Let's Get Visible, just there over my shoulder. As to how the growth of brand in the beginning, when it was like 1950s and the start of advertising, kind of 1950s, 1960s, when media took off and TV came, they started doing advertising. it was very much top down, brands telling you what you should think about them. Whereas now with social media, it's very much brands are built from the ground up, in that the people that use the brands, the people that are interacting on the ground, they're the people leaving reviews that are able to influence. Like, if you're going to buy something, you will go and read reviews, you will go and see what other people think of it. So actually human beings are now like the people that people trust. People kind of understand that, and they don't trust the brands so much. And that's why influencers have kind of come to the fore, because these are people with a lot of followers and people believe what they're saying. That's why brands are trying to kind of come on board with people who their followers trust and therefore carry a lot of weight. It's no longer that top down. There's also been a real proliferation, put my teeth in, proliferation of ways that brands can actually get out there. So before, when I was growing up in the UK, there were 3 TV channels, like 3 TV channels, and only one of them was commercial. So if an advertiser wanted to reach audiences, they could just like buy some slots on, popular TV shows around there and hit a huge section of their target market. Now there are so many different ways to connect. There's TV, there's radio, but there's digital. There's so many channels. There's so many TV channels, radio stations, digital stations, online platforms, gaming platforms, that it's really hard. The advertising industry has become fragmented to the point where where does the advertiser spend their budget, and how are they going to reach these audiences? So again, the rise of the influencer has been like one person that can kind of draw these people in on and they are the people that are disseminating their personal brand across all these different platforms, and they are the person that's showing up. People ultimately buy people, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a large business, even if you think about huge businesses like Virgin, Richard Branson is the personal brand behind that, and people will follow him. He's got millions of people who follow him on Instagram, whereas only a couple of 100,000 follow the Virgin brand on Instagram. So people are ultimately quite nosy, and we want to know what other people are doing, right? So we'll follow the entrepreneur, we'll follow the person who's the head of the business. Now, I made that mistake when I started my business 7, 8 years ago. I was like, I'd worked for big brands, so I believed that the brand was bigger than me, was more important than me. So I created a company brand, and I kind of hid behind the logo a little bit. And that works okay if you're working for a big brand, but if you're working for an entrepreneur brand, nobody knows the entrepreneur brand either. So I was kind of hiding because of imposter syndrome, or wanting to feel confident. And that having a company brand is important too if you are looking to work with corporate a corporate environment, for example, or if you're planning to scale your business, if you're planning to work with more than one person in your team, then it's good to have a company name. But ultimately, you as the leader need to build your personal brand as well as your business brand, and they're 2 separate things, but they should support each other.
Absolutely. That brings me to today's, where we stand. How do one build a brand? Is it about, for a brand, if you see, how do they go about building it? How do they come to know themselves as a brand? Because the CEO, if you build them as a brand, they will keep on coming and going. They will themselves become an influencer. And the second part is for smaller organizations, smaller companies, startups. This is the age of startups. How should they go about building a brand for themselves? Again, how do you do that? Should everyone get to making videos? Should everyone go to influencers? How should a company then start projecting itself in the right kind of media? Digital media is taking over, in many aspects in terms of mainstream media. So brand cannot have to have a very difficult choice to make here. That exclusivity is gone. Even the smaller brand can afford the digital media landscape. And that is
Absolutely.
where, it's a very big level playing field, and perceptions matter. As you said, every review matter. So you can't just hide behind the logo. People are watching. you much more closely than you think. That is where, how does a brand or a smaller brand or a smaller in startup, how do they get started in today's time, Sapna?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that I do talk about in my book, Let's Get Visible. And it was, that was more about the business brand. First, it is about visibility, because I always say you cannot buy what you cannot see, right? So people sit there thinking their wonderful work is going to speak for themselves, for itself. And if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't put your business out there and yourself out there, no one's going to know. There is this huge amount of what I call an information tsunami coming at us, right? It feels like this overwhelming wave of information coming from all these. Do you know how much we scroll? Every 20 days, we scroll the height of Mount Everest.
Oh
Isn't
my
that insane?
We are climbing Mount Everest. That's a great achievement for
We're up
us.
with our sun every 20 days, right? So if you're putting one piece of content out, it's gonna get subsumed in this, tsunami of information. So consistency is one of the things that people they put a post out, or they put like one episode of, kind of a podcast out. And most podcasts, by the way, don't get past 3 episodes. So congratulations that you've kept you've kept going, because most people start a podcast and they stop after 3 episodes. So that consistency is part of the thing that builds brands. First visibility, then consistency, and that consistency will build trust, right? You'll build your audience and you build trust. And trust is one of those things that it's very hard to gain it in this day and age with so many choices out there. But actually, by producing, as you were doing, producing your podcast, you can produce videos, you can produce podcasts, you can produce social media posts, or whatever it is. But stuff that shows your face is definitely one quick way to build that trust again, because there's research shows that people don't actually, the brain doesn't see a difference between seeing you online or seeing you in real life. So you can build that amount of trust with people just by showing your face online more often. People are gonna feel that they've met you. And I sometimes get that when I go to networking events, where people kind of go, oh my God, like, I feel like I know you, because they've watched my stuff or they've seen me online and they know what I'm up to. So it builds that trust much quicker. One of the other things that we've got to be mindful of for entrepreneurs now is that obviously AI is taking over many aspects of business, many aspects of productivity. It's making our lives a lot easier and quicker, and it's replicating some jobs that some people can do. And there will be a swathe of people who don't understand AI, who aren't getting on board with it, who are going to be made redundant out of their roles, right? So building your personal brand is one thing that AI can't do quite yet. And so again, it's that thing about people connection. And I believe that in the future, and now even, the personal connection is more and more important. It's the only thing that's truly unreplicable. Again, I must stop using long words. Unreplicable about your business is the human being, right? The human element of that. And I think that will be more and more valued and more valuable as time goes on, as AI takes over the lower paid and lower ranking jobs and parts of the business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll come to your book after this, but before that, you mentioned about building personal brand. In terms of companies, there was this lot of talk about companies owning AI influencers, and that will initially there was a lot of. Nowadays, I don't know. Maybe I'm not clued in, or I don't see the right places, but I don't get to hear about this brand influencers, company owned brand influencers or brand ambassador, whatever way we want to, or whatever is the correct way. What is your sense or observation on this? Yeah, has it faded? Is it not working? Companies have realized it. You need human beings to connect with human beings.
I think it was a fad. I think it was, when new technology comes on board, everybody jumps on there and they try to see what they can do, how far they can push it, what they can create, and that's brilliant. But then ultimately, I don't know how you feel, Ajay, when you see like AI generated images, for me, of people just look a little bit soulless. and you don't see that, glint in the eye and the warmth and the humanity. It's just too clean and clinical, and there's something that affects us on a very emotional and deep sort of level there, that you kind of don't trust the brand if you don't sense that there's a real human being behind it, who's telling you these messages. So I think that they probably tried it and kind of went, it's okay, people are doing it, but I personally don't connect with that. And I think it's if you're trying to fast track building trust, then that's not the way to do it. I don't think you can fast track building trust. I think trust has to come from genuine connection.
Absolutely, Sapna. And that also brings me to your book, Let's Get Visible. It has won a Global Business Book Award. Who is this book for? Who is your ideal reader for this book?
It won an award for Startup Inspiration, which is an award I didn't actually even enter. So it's like, it's not just for startups, but I think because I have a 6-step vision process, which I break down in the book, and it's 6 steps to understanding brand and then how to build your own brand. And it takes people on that journey. I think startups find it very useful, but even if you are an established business owner and you're looking to rebrand your business, if you're looking to go beyond the logo, I think a lot of people, when they start their business, they just get a logo done. They go on Fiverr, they get a logo, and then they kind of go, okay, right, I've got that. Now I can get out there. But actually, your logo is only a very small part of your brand. It doesn't build a brand. It doesn't build connection. It doesn't build emotion. It doesn't build meaning. And so what I do is help people with this book to build a brand that is actually going to connect on a deeper level with their target audience. And then I show them how to get visible, how to stand out in their industry. You have to stand out, because if you're standing out, you're blending in. And if you're blending in, you're invisible. And if you're not visible, then no one can buy what you're selling if they don't know that you exist. So standing out is very, very important for the brands that I build, that they have to look different from the competitors. A lot of people start their business and they'll kind of look at the logos of their competitors and go, oh, I want something like that because that's the market leader. I want to look a bit like them. But that's really not going to help if you're creating a Me Too brand. So a lot of what I talk about is about finding out what's unique about your business and then building on that.
Absolutely. So let's look at it from a startup point or smaller companies' point of view. Founders, generally, people struggle about how should I use my personal brand, business brand, personal name, another logo should be at the forefront. But at the same time, a lot of these startups, new companies, they look at the exit also. That we will, how do you then calibrate this part of using your individual face and then looking at the exit destination for yourself? Then it can be a bit tricky for you. What is your advice or understanding on this in terms of building your business around your personal branding, or building your first company's branding and people know you because of that? Then you get better money out of that.
Yeah. Well, as I say, both of them are important. I mean, I actually talk about this at greater length. I've got a presentation where I talk about that. The personal brand is when you're connecting with the audience on a personal level. So you might talk about your origin story, your why. We talked about a little bit about my origin story and how I got to doing what I'm doing. And people connect with the growth and the journey that you've been on, especially if you have come up with a solution to a problem that you've experienced yourself, for example, or something that you keep seeing over and over again. So you talk about it's the things that you're passionate about. It's your why. It's, Simon Sinek says, start with why. So people want to know about the person behind the brand. And so that's the personal brand. But the business brand is really important, to have that consistency of messaging, to have that brand promise that is externalized from you. It's what the brand stands for, because especially if you're going to bring other people in, they've all got to buy into those brand values. They've got to be part of that company mission, that company vision, which is bigger than you. It's bigger than the person that's founding it, right? And then that's how you will be the front person when you're going to get investors, but they are buying into not just you, but the actual brand vision. So what is the thing that you're trying to sell, and what's the difference that you're trying to make with the world? How is that going to, how is that going to be, transpired? Is it like online? Is it an offline service? Is it, with a team of many? Is it a SaaS product? Those are the things that your shareholders and investors are going to be interested in. And that part of the business can be sold, it can be scaled, it can be expanded, it can be rebranded. Your personal brand is you, it stays with you, and it's you forever. So that will continue whatever you get involved in. Your personal brand will carry the weight, and that allows you to build more than one company, right, in lots of different areas. If you've got a strong personal brand and you've proved success in one area, then you can kind of go, well, okay, this is something else that I'm interested in. So I built my career on building company brands, and then after a 2-year break, because I had cancer, and so I took time out of the business for a couple of years, I came back, and then people were coming to me saying, I need help with my personal brand. Now, I didn't even realize that I built my own personal brand. In a way, because I just build brands, it came very naturally to me what you have to do to build a brand. But they said, no, you've done it for yourself, so we want to know how you did that. So now I'm taking people through building personal brand profile as well, which is so I can kind of build both, and so I can work with founders and help them with both sides of their business. But then off the back of that, I've actually I've just created a networking group as well. So, because it's all connected with building personal brand and building your brand. But if you built your own personal brand, then people trust you with the next thing that you launch.
Right, Sapna. So, what are the main challenges that you find your clients facing? What is it that they, that they talk to you about? They need your help in. They're experts. They know about their business. They know about their companies. They know about themselves. It is just that they don't know about their customers, because they have put so many bots before them that the customers are only seeing the bots and not this person, because they know that this guy is telling a lie and he is only wanting thought leadership and nothing else. And now they realize that the customer has woken up, and this guy has suddenly woken up and he wants good advice. I just want to understand from that customer point of view and the brand, and what are the challenges for them at the moment.
So I have 2 sets of clients, which is a bit difficult for me to balance at the moment. But so for the business brand clients, it's their brand. That's why they come to me, because they're usually established entrepreneurs. They have been in business. The sweet spot is usually 3 to 5 years, and they have started out with like a homemade logo or a cheap logo, cheap branding. And they're finding now that they feel that it's maybe stopping their growth. It's stopping them putting out their message, because they only have a logo. They're not quite sure what their brand personality should be, what their messaging should be, what their positioning would be, how they should look when they turn up online. They're using, old imagery. They're using, it's all a bit of a mess, especially if the business has grown and there's several people creating brand assets. It all starts spiraling out of control, and the brand doesn't look consistent. Now, if you think back to how much we're scrolling, that height of Mount Everest every 20 days, every time your brand shows up, it has to be consistent, because otherwise people won't recognize it. They just won't recognize it in that mass. So consistency is one of the big things. And customers will come to me and they'll say, look, we've got this logo, but we haven't really got a brand. Can you help me with, it's not just about logos, colors, and fonts. It's about, how am I going to show up? What is this meaning? Who am I targeting? And how am I going to, kind of connect with them on an emotional basis? So we look at things like the brand personality. How's this brand going to feel? And the brand voice, what language is it going to use? How is it going to communicate? So there's all of these different touch points, not just the visible ones, but then we look at things like, yes, colors and fonts, but also imagery. Photography can speak 1,000 words. So it's like looking at every single aspect, every touch point of their brand, where they show up. So it might be on their website, it might be on their YouTube channels, or their podcast links, but it might be brochures, it might be business cards, it might be every single aspect, digital, online and offline, to make sure that it all hangs together and it's consistent every time you show up. For the personal brand clients, these are people who generally have been working 10, 20 years. They're quite experienced, But the landscape has changed, as we've discussed earlier. It's got a lot busier. It's become harder and harder for them to stand out. The referral work isn't maybe coming as easily. And so they need to get that confidence to put themselves forward, to build their personal brand in order to stand out. So for a lot of these people, it is about getting visible, getting themselves visible, and getting over the what we call the ick of that. It feels we're all grown up. We're all sort of brought up like nobody likes to show off. No, you can't go and just tell people, especially women. I think they feel very awkward about telling people how great they are, how brilliant their work is. We're meant to be the supporters and the carers and the kind of the role enhancers rather than pushing ourselves forward. So a lot of my clients are women, and I'm giving them the permission and the confidence and the structure. We still go through the vision process, but it's about turning that vision process to the human being and sort of saying, well, what is your message? What do you stand for? What are you passionate about? How are we going to get that message out there? And where are you going to show up, and how are you going to show up?
Absolutely, Sapna. One quick last question for you, Sapna, is to understand what does the future look like in terms of brand building? Because one big thing that I see is, the struggle to look that you are a human who is actually a human. The first assumption now is that whatever great you have written or trying to show to the world, that is all generated by AI. Then how do you present that human face in spite of, or in spite of this particular assumption, and make the people see it as a humane brand, or a human which is also behind this particular brand, is personal brand or in terms of the larger brand? How do you do that? Because everywhere people know it's either Quora, Sora, or any sort of Chat GPT, Perplexity, Claude, DeepSeek, whatever. People know all about it.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think people can generally tell when copy is AI generated, when images are AI generated. People can tell. Even if they can't tell, there'll be something that they can't put their finger on that doesn't feel right. It's funny. I went to a music exhibition with my children last summer, and they had a display with several pieces of music that had been written by AI, and several pieces of music that had been written by famous composers. But they weren't famous tracks. They were just, kind of electronic. It's all electronic music, but some written by real people and some written by AI. And I have to say, we all identified the AI music 100%. My children, myself, my husband, I was very pleased with that. There were 6 tracks, and there was 50% of them were AI and 50%. So I think there is something that we kind of know deep down. And I think the brands that will win are the brands that truly embrace humanity and show humanity, that engage their audiences, that give their audiences value, that show up for the people, that know what their customers want and show up for them, and stop trying to replace everything with AI. AI has got its places, and it's great to do the manual stuff that we all hate doing. It saves time. But I certainly don't think that AI generated content is the way forward. I think that's trying to cheat your audiences. And I think, remember that brands are built from the ground up, not from the top down. I think remember that your customer experience and your customer journey are very, very important. And when those customers come in contact with your brand, you want to be giving them a positive experience.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you about all these things, Sapna, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of clients, potential clients would want to connect with you, learn more from you, learn also from your book. So what's the best way for them to connect with you, Sapna?
My main platform, I have to say, is LinkedIn. So if you find me on LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active. I am on the other channels, but I don't really talk about my business so much on the other channels. So
wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.